GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. It's war. We don't want war. But if you want war, States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, God. No one else will raise sons and daughters.
Welcome to our Ask Gun Questions episode, whatever it is. My internet's working or not? A bad internet. Maybe I should shut this down already. And welcome Overtack from Texas. Jumping in.
Good to be here.
And is doing stuff. He said he might be able to jump in later on, but he's got errands he's working on. Hopefully it's in a good way. Get done. Getting a bit accomplished over. Let's see. He's out there joining us. I was just sitting here catching my breath from cutting the lawn, and the show came up. Speaking of cutting the lawn, I got myself 2 new lawnmowers coming. Woohoo! So I don't have any lawn, but I got 2 new lawnmowers. Got 1 lawnmower. I got a second.
I feel like there should be legislation. Nobody needs more than 1 lawnmower.
I have so many lawnmowers. You know what weed eaters I have? Let's start thinking about weed eaters.
Oh, those are the
weed eaters at this point.
Well, those are the that's military grade on equipment there. We don't need to talk about that.
Assault sickle. You only need one blade.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we started the show off with Staff Sergeant Bolivia. I don't know how to say his name. But pretty cool quote. I don't know if you heard that quote yet. Oh, crap. That's 4 years old? What? That's 4 years old. I thought that was I guess it just is, was started getting played or whatever the last couple of days. But have you heard that quote before?
I came in late, so I don't even know what it was.
You heard most of it. It's just about, I guess it might have been, I guess it says when he was inducted into the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes in 2019 for gallantry in Operation Phantom Fury in Iraq. So he was at a ceremony or something, and it's been going around today, and I thought it was a recent speech or something. I thought it was something maybe he said yesterday or something. But anyway, it was just
well, that just goes to show you, if you put something on the internet, you never know when it's going to pop back up.
That's a good point. And yeah, that happens actually quite a bit. I wonder if anybody's done anything to look at that, but quite often things are dug up, that don't do nothing when they're put out, but then later on, they bounce or they kick or they fly or whatever you want to say. Let's see. Speaking of that, I got a lot of air fryers. So I've had air fryer stuff on my brain, and that got me thinking, because do you know who Professor Yamane is? Have you ever had him on?
No.
You know who I'm talking about, though? Gun
No.
Culture 2.0. He's a professor in South or North Carolina. I forgot, one of the Carolinas, at a school, and he's been experiencing being immersed in the gun community as a whole, but that's what I'm about to talk about. it's been fascinating watching him because he's unique in his approach, but he's unique in his life experience, and then his I don't know what to call it, splash in the community, or like his, what he contributes and what he adds to the community, I guess. And we've had people that consider themselves liberal. I mean, how many can you count? I get sick of counting them. There's a ton of them. People act like, oh, we need more liberals. I'm like, no, we got tons of liberals. Like, there's been liberals forever, and there's a ton of them now.
Right.
For a while,
Well,
they were maybe scared to say it, but whatever. But anyway, he's one of these, self-professed liberal professor. And my main thing is he keeps calling it gun culture 2.0. He calls it right now gun culture 2.0. I mean, I guess you haven't ever paid attention to this guy. But if someone came up to you right now and said, we're living in gun culture 2.0, what is your, and you probably haven't heard me rant on this, what is your impression of we're living in gun culture 2.0?
that sounds really weird. I mean, like, what was 1.0?
Yeah,
If this is
yeah.
2.0? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's
Huh?
been
What?
existed since like
Yeah.
year 800 or some shit. Like, come on, what are you talking about 2.0? In your experience, 2.0, but in the rest of the world, maybe gun culture 70 or
Right.
17 or something. Like, no way, 2. So anyway, that's been my glitch the whole time. Like, what do you keep calling it 2.0? And he's convinced that because one of the radio shows, there's like 3 radio shows that are guns that everybody or people that listen to radio listen to. One of them, I forget which one of them, told him, oh no, it's cool. Grissom or I don't know, one of the guys with a beard said, oh no, gun culture 2.0, that's cool. Or he's borrowing it from him or something. And I'm like, there's no vetting there. And you're experiencing the community and you're still calling it 2.0. But anyhow, so it's one of my frustrations has been that. And I'm support him and stuff. It's just that, come on, be realistic. And so calling it 2.0, you're going to feel bad once you've been around for a little while longer and you realize it's like version 20. But whatever. It's been frustrating to try to explain his angle or his part, how he touches, like say what he contributes, and that got me thinking about air fryers.
Well,
So let's say somebody, go ahead before I get off.
no, I was going to say, because I don't know the dude you're talking about. So my question would be, yeah, that was my initial response, kind of the same as you. But my follow up would be, when he's referencing gun culture 2.0, is he coming at it from his perspective? And does he elaborate that point when he says it, or it's something he just throws out there, just kind of like,
oh yeah, good point.
people
No,
have
he
their,
doesn't
their
be like, this is
catchphrase?
gun culture 2.0 and you're wrong if you think it's otherwise. No, he's not like that at all. So that's a
Yeah,
good point. And I have no idea. I haven't read any of his books. I just follow
yeah.
him on the YouTubes and
Right.
Instagrams and stuff.
Maybe it's his. Yeah, maybe that's his perspective. Like he's went through 2 generations of gun culture or something.
Yeah. Well, no, it's more like he heard it from that radio show host and he went with it, and it's his thing now. So he has like T-shirts and stuff. It's like his branding, which I don't have a problem with. Him. Just like I said, it's like just technically inaccurate. So anyhow, so getting to air fryers, it got me thinking that, this guy and his relationship to guns is unique because he's a professor and he's coming at it as an adult, which isn't unique. We know more people that come into guns as adults than we do that grow up with guns, unfortunately. I think that's unfortunate, at least. So this guy is coming at it as an adult, coming at
Well,
it as skeptical.
I would say we know. I would say we know more as time goes on. Right? That's a dwindling thing. It used to not
That's
be that way.
interesting. It was only people that had guns around all the time when we were young, and it was fewer
Yeah.
people. And now it's more people, and all these people are adults deciding to get into guns. Like when I was a little kid, I didn't have no choice about guns. I happen to like guns, but there was guns around. What was I going to do?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there was guns around, period.
Right.
So, and again, it was like just the same way as there's a lawnmower around. Like you could have big issues about, you know what? How about a washing machine? Washing machines, you could have an actual discussion on whether or not the washing machine is what brought the world to the way it is, or it's what's going to kill the world, because it at the same time brings such positive stuff, but it takes for granted so much stuff, like all the negatives, and you have to ignore so many negatives for something like a washing machine. And what a washing machine is even for, the whole like clothing, and that's impact on society. So they're going to demonize guns because of our impact on health. They're going to demonize fuels because of their impact on the environment, while ignoring, right, fentanyl, while ignoring, as a health issue, while ignoring their clothing. And they're going to complain about your truck or your car or whatever your habits are while they're wearing. Let's go look in your closet, person who's so worried about the environment, right? If you want a real way to challenge somebody about the environment, let's look in your closet. Let's see if you're wearing only things that were secondhand, right? And if only things that were environmentally grown secondhand or whatever. Anyway, good enough on topic. So, everybody's coming at guns in a different way nowadays, and they have a right. And I don't care how you do it. Just because I did it my way doesn't mean it has to be a way you have to do it or nothing, right? And I actually enjoy seeing all the different ways people get into guns and how they experience them, what directions they take, and the new directions that are happening and stuff. But how do you explain all that, right? So I started thinking about it like an air fryer. And if you bought an air fryer and I bought an air fryer, does anybody think we're going to use that air fryer the same way? Like, no, why would you? Because you come from different, families that have different recipes and cooking and different tastes and different food. Like you live in Texas, I live in Arizona. We have different foods available to us and stuff. Like, why would we use that tool the same? And I think there's probably some meat. I'm going to use that word. I think there's some meat there to like play with. If guns were an appliance like an air fryer, which people know, or maybe you could say a stove or a fry pan or something, like who's to say what's the right way to use a fry pan? Who's to say that way your grandmother or the chef uses a fry pan, a professional or an enthusiast who's got a lifetime's worth of experience? Are they better at the fry pan? Like they're certainly different at the fry pan. Does somebody have a different right to the air fryer or the fry pan? I don't know. Have we ever used that one before? And think it's got any legs?
I don't know if we have, but I mean, yeah, what size, fry pan or air fryer, what material is it made out of? Like, there's a lot of similarities, but I would say that there are some universal truths as well. So, like, let's take the fry pan, the frying pan type thing, right? Could be cast iron, could be copper, could be whatever.
Yeah, seriously, right? What's
So
a fry
there's
pan
there's a
when it
few
comes to your
things
mind?
like
What is a fry pan?
it has to in order to work properly, it has to be hot, right? That's a universal, regardless of what you're using it for. And if it's hot, if you're not careful, you're going to burn yourself. So you have to be mindful that you're dealing with the heat source and the safety repercussions there. So there are some universal truths that translate over as well. So I don't know if that's a place
Oh
to
yeah,
focus on too, but
yeah, definitely.
the
Because right, you
the
can have a fry
differences.
pan on a cook stove. You can have it on a propane thing, a heater at a buffet. You could have it on a campfire. Right, in a million places you could use a fry
But
pan.
you could
Always gonna
start a
be
grease fire, but you could start a grease fire. You could burn yourself,
everywhere.
right?
Yep. No matter the
There's
circumstances, it
no
could be.
matter the source
Yep.
of heat. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I really like it. And it's not such a car one, like, oh, you have a driver's license. There's no license to buy a fry pan. There's no, you have a fry pan. Do you have an obligation to learn healthy eating? No. Do you have an obligation to learn how to saute right or like to agree on what a fried egg is? Right?
Do you
Like, I won't eat
necessarily have to?
these people eat.
Here's for the nightstand people. Do you necessarily have to even pull it out of the cabinet ever and use it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Are you allowed to just own a bunch of fry pans because you enjoy the fry pans? And, then some guy who, makes great omelets, like he has some omelet making fry pan that's like, so what? They can both exist in the world. And we don't give a blink to the person who's got, oh, I don't know. I guess people don't have a wall of fry pans. Somebody must. But I guess some people have cast iron on the wall. Actually, we were talking to somebody who's got a bunch of cast iron on the wall. Now I'm thinking about it in some interview sometime maybe 2 years ago. But anyway, people have, I think more often those molds, those copper molds for, I don't know if they're for bread or something else, but, those fancy, but, people have fancy kitchen tools on the wall just to look at them. Nobody goes, oh, you're not enough of a baker to have that stuff or what? Those are meant for baking. Anyway, so I don't know if we need to rant on that much more, but I just happened to be thinking about that earlier today and thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, I agree with you bringing up the vehicle thing because if you try to utilize the vehicle argument, it's going to quickly go to the driver's license issue, and a lot of times you're dealing, especially when you're dealing with anti-gunners or you're dealing with uneducated people who have got their absorbed, I should say, because a lot of people are anti-gun and they don't. I don't know that they're. I don't know what the word is. I don't know that they're intentionally or whatever anti-gun. They're regurgitating some talking points based on feelings or some other weird things, right? Drones are almost like drones, right? And so, when you're talking to those people and they're, um, you bring up the car thing, the vehicle thing, and they immediately go to the driver's license because they don't understand the difference between a right and a privilege. It's like then you get into a whole other conversation or potentially with somebody who is so uneducated that they're only regurgitating talking points anyway. And like when you start going from something specific like firearms and 2A into the general idea of inalienable rights, you know, wow, it really blows their mind. And you're normally talking to somebody that can't participate in that level of conversation anyway. So, yeah, I like the idea of switching gears and finding something else. And yeah, I think kitchen appliances, kitchenware, cooking utensils, things like that could be a route to go.
We're just saying that Professor Yamane is saying that 2.0 is defensive use of firearms, and that's, I think, how he explains it. You know, I'll say starting with Heller, even though that's still wrong, but or you know, if he's accurate, he'll say starting in the 1980s with Marion Hammer in Florida, and you know the good work that she did before she turned bad, and or at least annoying and useless. But
Well,
rather
in the
than,
history of the world,
I
in the
still don't
history of
think it's binary like that. Go ahead.
in the history of the world, have we had, um, for lack of a better word, we'll say tyrants for lack of a better word, but we're talking in the history of the world. We're talking Alexander the Great. We're talking about uh, uh, the Persian Empire. We're talking about Genghis Khan, right?
I was going to
Um,
say Genghis
but
Khan.
but in the history of the world, have we ever had a situation where quote unquote tyrants of that nature have actively sought out willy nilly an armed populace? Not to say that they haven't encountered, attacked, and overtaken an armed populace, but I'm talking about willy nilly, without preparation, without amassing a larger army and more equipment on their side, and this, that, and the other, and taking that into very extreme caution when they did that, mapping that out. Uh, and I mean, I think the answer to that is no. Quite honestly, like
Are you
that
talking just
that comes
general
into the
warfare?
equation.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just
that's
saying, an armed populace is absolutely throughout history always come into an equation. Now, if they're just Bedouin peaceful people, then no, they go in there with whatever troops they've got and run roughshod straight over the top of them.
yeah.
But there's usually calculation and planning that goes in. If you know you're going into another area, another country where those people, you're going to meet resistance and you're going to meet armed resistance. It's a whole different mindset or ball game by those oppressors, let's just say.
Yeah, the agitators are the aggressors. So that actually brings up some interesting stuff. That as you're talking about that, I'm thinking. So you've got the you're talking essentially about a game of attrition, or when you're talking about strategies, old warfare, at least once you got to, like, I don't know when it actually started, but when you're talking about what you're talking about, armies fighting each other or armies conquering and invading and stuff, it's attrition. I'm going to bring so many soldiers. You're going to bring so many soldiers. We're going to assume they're going to fight. And because I have more numbers, my soldiers will be winning at the end. I win. So that's, when the kings and the generals would sit on top of hills and watch the people push at each other, the conscripts, just either fight with swords or lances or arrows or guns, whatever it happened to be. It was wars of attrition. So wars of attrition, World War I, World War II, let's throw resources at each other at a front, at a line, and multiple fronts, multiple lines, and then the one who loses the most people, equipment, resources first loses, sorry, and the other people win, and they, that was the old wars of attrition. That essentially ended after World War II with small, obviously, small reliefs, depending on what strategy, what level you're looking at it. There's small things that happen, but major worldwide wars of attrition ended with political borders being essentially established, and then the balance of power with nuclear. But what you brought up here is something that they are not intellectually honest about when they ignore and take for granted the rifle behind every blade of grass. So nuclear worked to some extent with the Cold War by us spending money and them, with communism, not being able to incorporate the amount of spending it took. So people complain about capitalism and they complain about how much $1,000 toilet costs, but that $1,000 toilet stopped the Cold War without nuclear war. So how many $1,000 toilets would you rather have than a nuclear war anywhere on the planet? So we didn't have a nuclear war, but with the Cold War, And that stopped a lot of the political bickering, a lot of it, not all of it, obviously, but, it stopped the political bickering where, conquests and world wars happened because of political boundaries. And it switched to more different kinds of warfare. So, we've experienced all the different other stuff since. But I think the other facet of that is the fact that there's no way to invade us. And I don't care what anybody says anyway, there's no way to invade us. There's just not a possible way. And we see little examples like the examples that are happening right now, again, political issues. But in reality, if someone had a famine, if there was a political issue that someone said, enough people said we're mass migrating out of here, you're not invading our country. And it's because of the rifle behind every blade of grass. And that doesn't mean everyone has to have a rifle. It just means we're free to. And that means that if your neighbor has 15, guess what? Everybody in the neighborhood has one when they need it. And people know that that's an issue or a factor, but they never bring it up, right? They live in that safety. They live behind that security, but they won't acknowledge it. And they won't suggest the consequences of their dream world where all guns just vaporize and bad guys with bigger sticks just come in and take over neighborhoods. Like, they can't see that as a thing because they've never experienced that strife, or they've never left their own boundaries to go find where that's actually happening in the world. I'll quit ranting, but I think that's a great point that that you brought up there.
Well, as far as crime, as far as other things, I mean, if you snapped your fingers and took away all the guns, it would go to. I mean, you're just talking about backing up through history. It would move to knives and swords, or it would move to blunt objects, clubs and spears, or it
poison,
would,
arson.
At what point? Yeah, at what point? I mean, it's you're not going to get rid of. Because again, it's the purpose of the human who is wielding said object, and that's the issue. And like, you're not going to, by getting rid of objects, a human's just going to find another object, and at the end of the day, the human has hands and feet. So like, there's no way to get rid of those at all. Period. Even if it's like, that's getting rid of inanimate objects is one thing, but how do you change the whole genetic structure, makeup, biology of a human body, right? You don't. So
if removing harmful objects worked, prisons would be peaceful.
Well, there also wouldn't be warning labels on anything, right? Like,
I just mean, if you were able to take away everything dangerous from a person, they would become less violent, then prisons would be peaceful because they don't have access to things. But that's not the way it goes. You take away access, and like you're saying, they either develop new ways or they just start smashing into each other. But you're not going to stop someone from being upset by taking away the things that they lash out with.
Well, you also create an incentive, because as you take away access, look at the war on drugs, for example. You take away access, and what happens? You create a market in which tons and tons and tons of money can be made for people to gain access now, right? Like, somebody is going to figure out, oh snap, I can go around the back way this way, blah 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 blah, and look at all the money I can make by doing this, right? And so now you've created a market where you get a few really big players, and it's usually in those situations, whatever we're talking about, prohibition, right? Look at prohibition. You create very unstable, very violent situations by doing that, by creating a market where it's not necessary to do that and create a market in the first place.
Well, so I'm not sure but the way I'm hearing that is, the way at least I would bring it up is, because there's, I think, a couple ways you could interpret what you're saying there, but I don't think that a person who would go hunting on the weekends, but if you took away a shotgun, he'd go water skiing on the weekends, that person's not going to have a desperate need to have a gun so bad that they're going to go to the black market to acquire a gun. Right now, they're going to suggest that the person who has a shotgun that goes to hunt every once in a while but could take it or leave it, they're dangerous because their gun exists. Right? They were the dumbass who bought a gun, and they're not responsible, so it's not built in concrete under the house, so it's possible for someone to steal that gun. So that bad person now has a gun, and that's the worst case scenario. Now a bad person has a gun. They think that by taking the gun away from the good person, you stop that bad person from having a gun. So when they hear, you take away guns by law and they're going to create a black market, those people who scorn the gun owner who's a hunter, who just has that shotgun, they're going to see in their mind that asshole going to a flea market, knocking twice in a handshake and getting his shotgun back. And now the criminal has got access to that gun again, right? And I believe that's what they think. Otherwise, they wouldn't so rabidly go after the law-abiding, the people who've done nothing and who live entire generations of lifetimes with their guns doing except acquiring value and some wear. But what they're not doing is that if you take away fentanyl, people go to China and they get the precursors. They hook up with international cartels and make the stuff across the border on the largest international land border. Then they'll take a bunch of immigrants from some South American country and cram them into 2 or 3 ports, hundreds and hundreds at a time. The news is forced to go and see why all of our resources are being tied up. And when all the resources are being tied up of entry with the human people coming through, that's when the mules will come across with or by air or by sea with all the fentanyl. So now they've got the precursors from Canada or China, sorry. They bring it to Mexico to create the fentanyl, and they bring it in by land or by air or by sea, through distraction with those massive migrants coming waves. So fentanyl is in the United States. So they're going to bring AK-47s with those precursors. There's no way they're going to bring Makarovs, Tokarev, other handguns that the Chinese create. No way that they're going to be able to do that when they remove from the United States, right? That's what the market is. That's what, now somebody's building zip guns from some home supply store. They're not selling them to Joe Blow who's going, I got to desperately go dove hunting this weekend, even if it's a 20-year federal offense. No, they're going to be selling those zip guns to the cartel who's guarding their fentanyl and somebody else's money, right? Yeah. So that's the part where I think they're delusional as shit, that they think that, you remove guns from people and now criminals won't have them. Aha, we succeeded. And if there's a black market, then we'll just tighten down on those asshole hunters. They're just oblivious to the 107,000 deaths from fentanyl, however many consequences to the people who are associated with that. But then all the people that didn't die in fentanyl, they're just addicted to fentanyl. Let's not talk about them at all. Let's act like at most 30,000 suicides and 10,000 crimes that happen with guns, that 40,000 altogether is more important than the 100,000 from fentanyl. They're oblivious, and they're not even paying attention to the fact that they're paying attention to this one little shiny flag waving, which is allowing the whole fentanyl mechanism to take place. And they foolishly think that if they were able to successfully crack down on guns, that would not just immediately be another option on the menu with the fentanyl trade. They can bring methanol, or what I'm saying, fentanyl. They can bring cocaine. They can bring heroin. They can bring whatever drug you want. I'm sure they can bring other things that are illegal. I don't know what else is illegal. Cuban cigars or something. I don't know what else is illegal. But if like you say, if they made guns illegal by some blink of the eye or something, it's not for us. It's for the cartels. They're going to just add AK-47s and Chinese pistols to the menu. Anyway, so we got actual gun questions. So
they just think that the gun. I think they think the gun makes the criminal, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. They don't put much effort into it, and that's why one of the reasons I believe, I'm quite certain that they're not into this. They're giving it a casual attention, and like you say, they're regurgitating for sure, but it's because they don't care enough to put any interest into this. They know that they hate fill in the blank. Maybe it's Trump this week. Maybe it's somebody else who I'm not paying attention to, but they hate somebody. And on their checklist, somebody who they hates guns. So they got no interest in guns. I hate guns too. And it makes a bunch of rednecks or other people that they don't like unhappy. Bingo, extra bonus points. Now I hate guns. Don't need to know why. Don't care. It's not my thing. Just like if I hate, beets. I don't like eating beets. If somebody wanted to make beets illegal, what do I care? I don't like eating them. So it's probably one of those kind of, I think there's that attitude going, as opposed to like you're saying, I get up every morning and hate guns so bad.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more. There's a lot more subtlety to it with most people.
Or definitely no roots. I believe that if we were able to show them that, hey, here's some quick ideas on how their points are based on BS, and they're just really bullying gun owners because gun owners are generally nice people. And once people figure that out, they'll move on to the next thing. There's just more important things in their lives, I think. Woods is saying, he's read Yamane in his writings. He's saying that 2.0 is defense only. The shift from hunting is the majority. 2.0 defense and target is the majority. Okay, I mean, I understand that, and that's probably where he gets the 1 and 2. But where did hunting come from? Because guess what? Guns were built for war. So guns went to the military and police, and the rich people dueled with them. That's kind of 1. And then it went from that to hunting because we weren't doing good in the wars. So NRA got built. That's kind of 2. And then if it's true that nothing else happened since then, which I don't believe, because then there was the 1968 Gun Control Act in 1934. So now guns became political. That's kind of 3. And then guns became self-defense is kind of 4, right? That happened in the 80s, though. So if we're truly watching a timeline, now guns are a social issue. Gun 0.5, just saying. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I don't think it's 2. It's super binary for what we're talking about. Such a nuanced thing.
I think it's gun culture 5.56, but that's just me.
That's nice. Yeah, I haven't put much thought into it, but just thinking about it here, just riffing on it, I think it's easily at least 5 that we're in right now, if not 6 or 8. I mean, if I thought about it more, I think we might be in 8, because there was probably a time of gun invention that I would think would be another thing in the 1850s when we went from flintlocks and cap and balls to snap, and then Browning. You know what I'm saying? Like that's another gun culture. I don't care what anybody says. We're allowed to.
Yeah, the Wild West definitely be one.
Colt created the board through Colt reinvented the revolver. Excuse me. Smith and Wesson invented the board through cylinder and bullets. So when Colt invented the revolver and cap and ball, that was revolutionary. That was the AK-47. That was, oh my goodness, that's a Gatling gun in your hand. So he sold a few, went out of business, from what I understand, and then he got an order for more. He went and got funding, put his company back together, and then went to Eli Whitney and said, how do I make this order for more guns than I can make by hand? And he said, hey, make them with interchangeable parts. And I think that's how it went. And then Colt did that, where Eli Whitney was like, hey, that would be the way to do it. Colt actually accomplished it. Colt then had a gun that not only was a revolver that was useful, but won't accept, they won't leave because they're intellectually dishonest. Colt created interchangeable parts in a machine. That created the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We're not going to call that influence society and culture and history. We're not going to call that part of culture, because guess what? As soon as that happened, guns changed from partisan objects to everyday objects, and then through a societal change with the suicide specials and the Saturday night specials. Like, give me a break. We're on gun culture probably 11, and I'm not even trying hard to put layers in there.
Oh, look at
there's layers to this.
The proliferation of firearms in general, late 1800s, early 1900s, Industrial Revolution, was absolutely insane. I think that's a whole other thing there itself.
People kids having to work, families having to work. You got a 25 ACP to provide to save your paycheck. Thank you, Browning.
Like in every farm and ranch store, feed store, department store, and the amount of brands were unfreaking believable. Manufacturers. I mean, if you go to, I love that era, and I've got a lot of firearms from that era. And one of the cool things, if you're into that, and if you ever get a chance, is to go to the James Davis Museum, because they have a ton of that stuff, and you'll see brands from the late 1800s, and not just in the United States, but worldwide. You'll see brands and manufacturers are like, who the crap, like Joe Bob's Revolver Company, and they made like 500 or something, like literally. And, but there was thousands and thousands and thousands of companies in that era that were, taking their shot, right? Basically, I mean, trying to be,
because the demand was insane. People could not get enough of this thing that created a balance of power between me and the bad guy who's trying to kill me. Because back in the day, you could just kill people and leave them on the side of the road. There was no forensics. There was no consequences. You killed people. What the hell? People
unless you were seen doing it, basically, was the only.
And even if you were, what are you going to do? Get killed by the same bullies? It's ridiculous. Like, we have laws today because of the horrible way things were back in the day. I was going to say, when you mentioned something about having like all the different 22s, what has anybody ever thought about the consequences of the 22 shotgun and 22 and vermin, pests, and the ability to actually have agriculture move on? Like, I'm not saying that
Oh yeah.
22s stop, the people with the 22 stop all hay from being eaten, but I'm just saying that had to influence. When you've got kids, BB guns and 22s, you don't have the same rat problem you had back in the old days where you have a sword and a kid, or a kid with a freaking dagger. I don't know what they did back in the old days to catch rats, but it's certainly not the same as, send a kid out with a
I'm
box
sure
of
they
22s
trapped,
or a
but
shotgun.
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, trap can only do so much. But yeah, I hear you. But and there was probably unscrupulous poisonings and shit, but that's probably why they all died when they were 25. Just poison everything, and then oh yeah, we're also eating the poison. But it's olden day stuff. Anyway, we went all kinds of rants here, but I appreciate the illumination there, because that is why he says that, and he's got to start somewhere. And it would sound boring if you're like, here, gun culture 11. Who's going to watch? Who's going to read that? I mean, except for some nerd. Ozzy's asking, have we tried ammo from Dean similar to Unlosing Defender? I have no idea. Is that a company? Or is that
Yeah, it's a company. Yeah. I've shot both. I have not done any ballistics testing on both. So I've shot both at events. That's where I shot both. And as far as the experience, just put it down range or whatever the heck, on a target. And it seems similar, I guess. That's about all I can say about it.
I mean, it would. I don't know what to say, because if one at a time and it works, and you're building it on some kind of progressive with a robot built onto it and it works, or you're building it on like equipment from World War II and it works. Same thing, it all works. Maybe it's just to get it built, but
yeah.
I don't want to say ammo is ammo. Yeah, they're milled and stuff is a rep, but I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Crump is up. You're allowed to say, hey, we won't try to claim back chat right there. Just do it the GOA and the ATF. The ATF gave something to him with what's that called? Freedom of Information. If I understand it correctly, the government was like, oh yeah, here you go. Oh, wait, hold on, we gave you the wrong one. And GOA's like, okay, and they're like, give us that one. And GOA's like, no thanks. We're just gonna keep it because we don't have to give it back. You gave it to us. And I think it's just a bunch of communication when they didn't redact everything that they would normally redact, all the back and forth or something. So little drama with the ATF and GOA right now. All right, so we do have real questions. The first one here is from actually back in August. So I don't feel bad because we haven't done shows every week. And we often do theme shows or we just rant like we've been doing. So we don't get enough questions that we're like way behind. We're only 5 questions behind. And this one goes back to August, but this is the oldest one. And the question is, what kind of IC choke can I purchase for a 301 tactical pump from Charles Daly? So IC is...
improved cylinder.
So that's a specific taper, I guess, of choke, which is essentially like a medium, is what I'm going to call it, right? Like, how can I get a standard or medium choke for, what's a 301 tactical pump? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with it, but I'm looking now to see what.
So the first thing will make a difference is if you've already got threaded barrels. So if the barrels are threaded for chokes, you're ahead of the game. Otherwise, you got to go get a new barrel or thread a barrel, both of which is going to cost something. I'm looking at a picture of it. It looks like a marine, like a nickel or else just stainless.
So pretty much anywhere. I don't know what kind they're saying. What kind? Pretty much any kind you want to get. Pretty much. That uses maybe they're asking like what kind. And so, yeah, Charles Daly uses the Bretta Benelli mobile choke thread pattern. So, which is pretty common, honestly, nowadays. So any choke.
It's like VHS or beta. Like it's just the format that they use to integrate or to install the choke onto the barrel.
Well, it's literally the thread. Yeah, literally the threads are, a certain type. So like having if you go to the hardware store and you look at all the screws, they're different. I mean, it can be the same size, but the threads are
But
totally
there's
different,
not that
right?
many. I mean, it's like more like a Picatinny rail versus accessory rail.
Yeah.
You might have one or the other, but most of them are all using accessory rail. So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah, but Charles Daly should be mobile chokes. So anybody that sells mobile chokes, Briley's are good chokes. You're going to pay for them. I prefer a company called Comp and Choke. Um, they have just a wide variety of extended chokes, flush fit, and a lot of other stuff. Carlson's, you're looking at a cheaper choke option. Pretty much any of those are going to have mobile chokes. You can also go, if you are looking at retail, you don't even want to go online. You could go Cabela's, Bass Pro, Academy, places like that are probably going to have them hanging on the shelf as far as the mobile chokes go. So I'm guessing they picked it up new. I mean used. Otherwise, it probably would come with, come with that choke. But I don't know. Maybe they got it used and it's got a full choke or something in it. I don't know.
The full is the tightest.
Typically speaking, there's a few that are tighter than full. You got an extra full, and you got a turkey, and then you got some really custom stuff after that. But yeah.
Essentially, when you buy a shotgun off the rack, they're just giving you a smooth barrel, aren't they? Are they putting a choke on that right away?
No, the vast majority of shotguns nowadays, outside of single shots, the vast majority nowadays have screw-in chokes. The vast majority, and typically, if you buy one new off the shelf, you're going to get anywhere from 3 to 5 chokes. Typically, come with it. You're going to get a full, a modified, and then usually like an improved cylinder. At the very least, I just got an over and under in, and it's a trap. It's a trap gun, so I mean it's a target model, competitive model. So that affects how many chokes it comes with, obviously. But it come with cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, improved, modified, and full. It come with 5 chokes.
So is cylinder just nothing? That's just the barrel.
Cylinder is basically it covers the threads because obviously you don't want to shoot,
exactly.
put shot down the
cover.
Yeah.
That's what I thought they just came with. So,
no, they don't. They come with more than that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I mean, if one comes with nothing but one, is it going to come with just a cylinder then, or is it going to come with an IC? Because
Yeah,
if you don't know what you're
brand
going to
new. I mean, I don't know of any shotgun that comes brand new with just one. I mean, I have never seen that before. In years, I've never seen that before. If they have removable chokes, typically they come with at least 3, to my experience, at least, and sometimes as many as 5 or more. But yeah.
Oh, you know what? I happen to find one that's written in Turkish. So Clover's going to be familiar with it.
Nice.
So this is your cylinder is what I was thinking of. So that's just nothing. And then the tighter the funnel, essentially, you got your full, your modified, and your improved. And the improved is essentially what most people are going to use because it's just a little bit. It's not a lot. It's just a little bit. It helps a little bit, and it's not going to have. It's not. You can react. It's got some distance to it. Some of these others, you need to be a little quicker on the draw or be a little more precise. Because if you start making your shot tighter, guess what? It's not shotgun anymore. That's like a rifle, and you got to be good at it. So most people don't want to be super good at it.
Yeah.
Or can't.
Depending on the distance you're at. But yes, correct. Like that's why you want a tighter pattern. Is it's gonna if you have a tighter pattern at the muzzle, then it's going to go further before it's Fred. So if you're shooting at a smaller target 50 yards away, let's say, you've got better odds of hitting that 50 or 75 yards away. You got a lot better odds of hitting that with a full choke than you do with cylinder bore, because the cylinder bore is going to spread, the shot is going to spread too far apart, right? And so your target has a potential to fly around or be in between pellets, because that pattern is so huge by the time it gets that far out. So that's the idea of constricting it down, is so that shot is try to get it like an optimal pattern, as dense as you possibly can be at said distance. And some of those graphs you're looking out there, especially that one with the color and all on it, could be a much better interpretation.
This one, I don't like this one. I don't like this one because it's the thing. It's not. People don't think. I don't think people think about this. It's like you're shooting a swarm of bees at something, and you're gonna have that swarm of bees go out in a big mist, or you're gonna have that swarm of bees go out in like a laser, like they're all on a trail and they're going one after another. So if you can get them all on a trail, if you could get that choke down to where those beads are one after another, now you've got a machine gun trail of BBs that are hitting this thing. That is going to go through a thick duck, where sometimes you don't care about going through a thick duck. You're just trying to break a piece of flimsy asphalt with color on it that you're throwing out into the desert. So you want just a big swarm of bees because only one or two bees can knock open that piece of asphalt and break it the way you want. So if you're trying to kill
small
duck,
dove or something like that.
no, that makes good sense. Yeah, you're right. There's other things like a frog or a pest, like a rat or something.
Oh yeah. Squirrel.
You're just trying to shoot something. Squirrel, you don't want to. Anyways, but yeah, so if you can, so that's the thing. If you want to peg a squirrel in the ass with three things and go hunt, find it until it dies, and then eat three things in the meat, go for it. Some people would take a 410, choke it off, and just take the head off of that squirrel, and the meat's good to go. And that's just two different ways of hunting that squirrel. But you can do that you can't really do that with birds as much, but turkeys you can do that with. But that's what I think this does a better job of. When you choke it right, and Clover is going to riff on this, I think. Choke is one end of it, but now once you choke it, now you got to have shot that can actually deal with the choke. Because you go buy the cheapest shot on the shelf at Walmart, you're getting drop shot. You go buy fancy stuff for killing a duck at distance, and Woods could get off on this too probably. Now you're talking about stuff that's designed to fly as a swarm through a choke and blah, blah, blah. So I think this does a better job because when they show these funnels, people think it's a death funnel. I want my big wide death funnel or whatever. No, what you're really doing is you got this swarm and you're going to try to direct that swarm to either, again, we're not magic here. You need energy. Where do you want that energy? That energy doesn't come from one or two way over here. It comes from a bunch of them right in the middle. So if you're trying to hit a duck in flight, knock something down out of the air near you and not 40 yards the other way from you, all these other factors, or bad guy, right? You want to hit everything in your room and the bad guy with four pieces, or do you want everything going into the bad guy? So
even with those, the problem with any of those, and even the one you've got on the screen now, the problem with any of those charts is they're two-dimensional, and you have to think of it three-dimensional. Now, that's great looking at that and seeing the side view of the expansion of the shot. Now put yourself behind the barrel of the gun, of the shotgun, and see what that pattern is doing as it's moving away from you, right? Mm-hmm. Like until you incorporate that element, it's hard to get.
And everything's moving probably because it's a shotgun.
Because like I said, that's not really taken into account when you've only got the side view two-dimensional. It's not taken into account nearly as much the spacing, the density of the pattern, and that's a huge thing. You gotta have that into consideration too. I agree with where you shot. Another thing is that shot buffered, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a powder that's poured in that fills in the gaps in between all of the shot. And then you've also got the wad. The wad is what separates the powder from the shot, and the wad often has the shot cup, which is what holds the shot, incorporated into the wad. A lot of modern things, if you've ever shot a shotgun shell, odds are you went down range, you picked up the little white thing or whatever that's kind of cylindrical looking, and that's the wad. A modern wad, like I said, has the wad portion and what cups the shot, and then depending on how that's designed, some of them have almost like a spring type design or whatever to them, where it helps to build the pressure a little more and apply that pressure to the shot column a little more consistently. Some of them, the pedals of the shot cup are designed in a way that the barrel constricts them, but then when they, with centrifugal force, the weight of the shot column and other things, when they exit that barrel, those pedals open, do some weird thing that affects the way that that column reacts and then moves down range. The shot column reacts and moves down range. So there's a lot of science behind it, and especially if you ever if you ever get into reloading shotgun shells and you get into a competitive environment or something like that, then oh, it's really cool and really fun to play around with loading and playing with different types of wads and shot cups and things like that. It's really cool, and types of shot, even as G recommended or as said. Um, you can get reclaimed shot. I was getting once upon a time reclaimed shot. That's when they go out with these shotgun clubs and they basically suck it up almost with a big vacuum cleaner type thing. Um, and just kind of roughly clean it off, and then for sporting clays and things like that, it does fine. And then you've got your drop shots, and you've got your stuff that's actually machined, and the pellets are all the same weight. They're all the same size. They're perfectly smooth and round, and that sort of thing. And yeah, absolutely, 100%. Those have a different flight pattern. They fly. They group differently, differently than other stuff. So um, it's like anything else. It's this whole other world, right? And depending on what you want to do, and how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can. But to answer the original question, was a Charles Daly shotgun and getting an improved cylinder, and that would be a mobile choke. So just look for those.
Right on. Oh, let's see. Then I have a Stevens Model 77D 12 gauge pump. As far as I can tell, it's a smooth bore. I want to know if it's safe to shoot 2 3/4 shot 1 ounce slugs through the barrel.
Well, that's an easy one. As far as I could tell, well, you would be able to tell for sure the difference between smoothbore and rifled. Um, just look up some pictures on the internet, for example. It's like that easy. Rifled, I mean, it's a pronounced twist and all down the barrel. It's easy to tell. Smooth is going to be smooth. There's going to be no ridges or valleys or anything else going on that's symmetrical in design inside the barrel. Obviously, depending on what's been shot down that barrel, there could be some residue or some dirt that I understand where some folks could maybe look down the barrel and get confused, but especially once that barrel's clean, it's difficult to.
Oh, you know how you get confused? There's one way you're not thinking of it is all. An old Damascus barrel can look like it if you're not familiar with it because of the swirl.
It could, but the pattern on Damascus is, first of all, the pattern on Damascus is like no two patterns are ever the same. And then the other thing with Damascus,
wire barrel type.
But then, and the other thing is, if it's been shot any length at all, it's usually polished. All that's polished out pretty smooth anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm thinking that that's a very specific situation. So, and certainly not on the
double barrels will have that, because usually it's not a modern pump. It's an old double barrel or single barrel that'll have it. It's just that they have a swirl, and if you're not used to it, and someone tells you look for a twist going down the barrel, and I mean it's a tight swirl because it's essentially. The olden days, they would take a piece of metal and wrap wire around it and then beat on that wire until it turned into a barrel. And then they'd pull it off and it's a shotgun barrel. So it ends up like a coil of wire all smashed up. And, they look at that and go, oh, twist. But in reality, it's just, what you're saying.
To answer this, I mean, obviously the 77 is not, it's not Damascus barrel. 2 3/4, the 77 is we'll definitely shoot 2 3/4. 1 ounce, not a problem. And the Remington Slugger, I don't know if there's anything specific, but as far as I know, the Remington that they call a Slugger is a rifled slug. Rifled slugs are for smooth barrels. So, shouldn't be a problem. Is the answer to that question.
All right, so I'm different. I don't know who this was, but a model 77D, according to Wikipedia, it's not the Blue Book or nothing, but it says it was made in 63 and there was 70,000 of them, so they couldn't have made them, 10 years maybe? A few prototypes were fitted with bayonets for Vietnam, so I don't know, but they're old is all I'm saying. And to me, I don't know if I'd when somebody's saying is it safe to shoot a slug through there, they're either wanting it for home defense or going to go hunt something with it, and I just think that's a lot of use for a 1960 shotgun. But
Well, we need to caveat this, so I appreciate you bringing that up. All things equal, and the shotgun being in good condition, right? Yes, no problem. Um, and I just say this: I shoot slugs out of shotguns made in the 19 teens and stuff. Like so,
I know. I mean, I'm not saying they can't do it. I know. I'm saying it's kind of like saying, I don't want to say it's a 19T, but it's kind of like saying I've got a 1957 Chevy, except maybe not that cool one. I have a 1950 Chevy truck or something, and I'd like to make that my daily driver. Like, yeah, you could do it. Like in 1950, that'd have been no problem. Like in 1970, yeah, probably. 90, somebody would have laughed at you maybe because it was an old car or whatever. But now, like, yeah, you can do it. Oh, it's gonna break. Like at some point, something's gonna break. It's old, like a cotter pin through. Something's gonna break. Something's gonna give. Do you want that to happen while you're hunting? Like while it's necessary to have it working? I just think that while it probably can handle it, I think it's a lot to ask to make it a daily driver. That's what I was saying. Like I know it for once. I'm just saying maybe go get like a shotgun, like an 8 or a 500 that's years old instead of something that's 60 years old. Because the thing is, the gun that was 60 years old, put it on the shelf. A 60-year-old with it, once you playing with it, it's been sitting around, taking with them on trips. Who knows what all that thing?
yeah, I'd have to look at the blue book. Eric out there is saying, yeah, you need to be careful with full choke. Definitely read the box on the slugs that you get. And see what they're recommended as far as how tight you can get by with on that choke constriction. A lot of slugs out there, it specifically says don't run these with a full choke. I would have to consult my blue book somewhere because I don't know on that 77D Stevens. But typically in that era with Stevens stuff, a built-in choke, which is what that would be. That definitely would not be an interchangeable choke in that thing. Typically, those are modified. So again, I go back to all things being equal, the shotgun being in good condition, and I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah, when they put in a slight choke, you can still shoot slugs through that. Typically, it might not be accurately the best way to go, but you can do it, right?
Yeah, you could technically get it. You can technically shoot stuff even through a full choke. I mean, there are slugs that are designed. It
Yeah,
has to do primarily with
yeah.
Yeah. Is there a wad or a we were talking about the wad earlier? Some will have it's almost like a saboted round, kind of going around it. What's the size of the actual size of the slug? Because when we start talking about tolerances between the projectile in a barrel and then the inner diameter of the barrel, the bore size, right? The actual bore size. You've got variants there. And when you're talking about choke constriction, it's not a huge amount. So, what I'm saying, sub slugs you can get by with. I mean, it's been forever since I bought any Remington slugs, and who knows what whoever asked this question, that could be some slugs from the era of that rifle. I mean, that shotgun for all we know. Like that they may be talking about a box of slugs they got sitting there from the 70s or something. So that could be way different than anything on the market nowadays. Remington may have changed the design. And there may be different caveats and everything. That's why I say always check, regardless. When you're talking about any type of firearm and any type of ammunition, always make sure that what you're looking at on the box of that ammunition kind of matches up with the firearm that's going in and that sort of thing. And looks like that for the most part. That's what this question was about.
That's a great point too. So we live in 2023. You can take a picture of a box of ammo, a picture of a shell. Send that to a gun shop. Hey, is this right? Do I have is this the right shells for this box? Is it okay to shoot this and this? Like, worst they're going to say is, we don't have time right now. Bring it in or call somebody else. And then you just do that. Call somebody else or bring it in. But I just want to throw that out there too. If anybody is listening to this show because they're attempting to learn about guns a little bit, gun shops are on our side. Gun shops are sometimes busy, but you're allowed to bring stuff in, bring it in unloaded, and ask them whatever questions you want. They may not know everything. Not everybody's obligated to know everything, especially if you bring in I'm going to call it obscure gun, a Stevens 1960 12 gauge is at this point obscure because so many shops, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but so many shops don't even deal with used guns. They only deal with whatever's new. And as it goes out the door, they're never seeing it again. Some other shop deals with used guns and repairs and stuff. So you can't expect every gun shop you go into to know the details or to know the whatever. But there are some of them, if they don't know us directly, they can call a customer or a friend, or they can direct you to somebody. So if you're not adverse to maybe making a few stops, if you've got more than one shop in town, it's worth calling around, driving around. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. Bring your gun with you. Bring your gun to the shop.
Yeah.
I don't want to put extra work on a shop, but I can't think of I can think of a couple of shops, but I can't think of too many shops that would be upset if somebody came in without any interest in purchasing anything just to ask a question, because most shops are nerds and we want to talk about gun stuff, or they want to talk about gun stuff. All right, so
you could always have somebody, and this is the thing, you would always have somebody that comes in with no intention to make a purchase, but depending on what things that gun shop carries, they leave making a purchase. Maybe they got some good deals on some used firearms. Maybe they've got some targets or some ammo or some accessories or something there. So everybody that walks through that door, regardless of whether they intend to make a purchase or not, is still a potential customer.
Yeah, and even if you went in there with a shotgun that you already own and shotgun shells that you already own, there's nothing stopping you from buying some Air Pro or a cleaning kit or, I don't know, something some impulse purchase at the register. Maybe their shop's shirt or T-shirt or something or a hat to help get their logo out there and help them sell some of their merch so that you can say thanks by, helping to get the word out about their shop. So there's ways that you can appreciate and support them as a capitalist too. All right, we're about an hour. I don't want to take too long. Tony was busy today. He said he could probably jump in later this afternoon, but I know Clover's the other way. He had just an hour, so I think we're going to all miss each other today. But normally, half the reason we do this show is so that we can BS after the fact. We have to get together at some point, start talking about SHOT Show, us three, because we haven't chatted about it.
Yeah.
It's been kind of
True.
With gun rights policy. I had something, Tony had something. And then Clover just doesn't like guns that much, so he's been hanging out at this gun shop trying to sell them all, I guess. We just haven't coordinated this show very often, but I'll get it back going here again. We have 3 questions over there. Go ahead.
Mounting scopes for people mostly that for some reason can't mount their own scopes to go deer hunting this year.
Yeah, that's how it is, though. People don't necessarily get every skill. I don't blame people. It's a pain in the ass sometimes. But on the other hand, it's really not that hard once you figure it out, and then you never have to ask somebody again. But whatever. I got 3 questions over there, so if anybody wants to go over and ask some more, feel free. We do have a couple for next week, but you can always ask more. We just got one the other day, in fact. So it's askgunquestions.com. Pretty simple website. There's no ads or we're not trying to get your email or nothing. It doesn't even ask you for email, I don't think, and we certainly don't collect it. But you can ask a question and leave us your name if you want. We never really look at the name. But I got the hiccups. Leave us a question if you want. On Saturdays, we answer them. Usually Tony Simon is joining us. He does the diversity shoots in, the New Jersey area, I guess tethered around New Jersey, Pennsylvania, other states. I can't think of them all right now because he goes out and does them as well. But that's an opportunity to bring people together on the regular, often twice a month. And he does them at different ranges around New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania and those states, and gives people a chance to get an orientation and a familiarization with guns. And then if they're interested, some trigger time. And instead of being a class or some kind of a course of instruction, it's just a familiarization. It's just a general, here's what it's like to be around guns at a gun shop with gun owners. And he finds that a lot of people will kind of tentatively attend and kind of poke around. And then often people dig it. They bring their friends, and it's, creating awareness. And then folks even stick around and become part of it. And it's growing and getting larger. It started to be something he did on the once a month type of thing, and like I say, now it's up to usually twice a month or more if he's out traveling. So again, he's busy doing errands. Hopefully that means he's getting something going here. But Clover, you've got stuff going on. Plug some of your stuff. You left.
No, I'm looking for the mute button. Yeah, podcast season in full swing. Been a couple of pretty good episodes this season so far. Two more coming up. Trying to think. One Shot TV on Thursday, I think, and one with Arms, I believe, on Wednesday. So, and then working on trying to get some filming done over the next couple of days. Got a lot of speaking of shotguns with the questions this week. Got quite a few things in the shotgunning arena that I need to get videos out on too. So,
Spoiler
also,
alert: the next two of the three questions are more shotgun questions.
yeah, wonderful. I don't mind it. That's fine.
All right. Well, so since you're talking about your podcast, this is something that I've noticed, and what has been the reaction slash what's it been like hosting at the guest's discretion. So it seems like instead of doing your show at set times, you're doing it when the guests are available, which means that it's kind of a shotgun effect with the when they're when you go live. So has there been any feedback, or how is that treating you?
Whoa, you lost me on that. You ghosted me with the long thing.
Your podcast, the second season, it seems like you're not doing them like Tuesdays at 9 and Wednesdays at 9 or something. You're doing them when the guests are available. So
I've been doing that for 3 seasons now.
Oh, I thought before it was Tuesdays and Thursdays or something all the time.
No,
Maybe I didn't notice it before. This time I'm noticing it because I'm like, oh, he's not here today. Like,
yeah.
What day is Clover?
It's Wednesdays and Thursdays. It's been Wednesdays and Thursdays we're in the 3rd season of that, but the times are random because I leave that because I want it consistently on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I leave the time open to the guests so that it better accommodates them being able to schedule. Here's the problem with pro tip, right? For those out there that want to start a podcast and have guests on. The easier you make it for your guests to actually be able to join you, the more guests you're going to be able to schedule for your podcast. That's just the way it goes.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
right. But it's like you're the vehicle going down the road with the trailer that's all going akimbo and back and forth. So it's like, it's like, where the hell is that trailer? Is it what lane is it in? So that's all. I just noticed it because I guess we hit a couple of times, and I'm like, I thought Clover was earlier than this, and then next week you're like in the evening, and I'm like, what the hell? So I do some paying attention with the days of the week, I guess. But so
and you're speaking. So you're speaking more too, and no offense to all of those joining us live here for sure, because we enjoy the live aspect, and there's a reason I record my podcast live. I love the interaction with the live folks, being able to ask questions and engage with the guest. But at the end of the day, realize that recording a podcast live on YouTube is an interesting means to an end, and that end is to put that in the audio podcast world. And so while the time is important with the live side of things, and it's like people that like to watch live, and it's like, crap, it's a different time of the day, it's a different time tomorrow, what time was it? And I get it. The vast majority, and don't get me wrong, if the live viewership blows up and I start getting tons and tons of people live, which I've never had, things may change. But as of right now, the vast majority of quote unquote listenership, because it is in the audio world, is in that audio world. And yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, once we get it recorded, and we do that, of course, for added engagement, we do that live. But once it goes into the audio world, those people don't care if it drops at 6 in the morning or 7 at night or midday, or they're not typically chomping at the bits, you know what I mean, to consume that content. It's whenever they check their feed, it's going to be there. They'll put it in their list to download and listen to, and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not quite as time sensitive as the live aspect of things. kind of hard to make everybody happy. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's not so much making people happy as it's not possible if you're not. So when you say that you're not getting a bunch of live viewers, but you don't have it at a specific time, well, it's almost impossible
I
to get.
didn't even when I did have it at a specific time, G-Webs. That's why I changed it. And I'm like, screw it.
Oh,
I'm going
I
to
know.
make it easier so I can schedule guests
I-
easier. And it's all about pretty much about the podcast world at this point. Plus advertising and a lot of the other things
Yeah, I know,
is
I know,
much
I know. But
easier
I'm
over
saying
there.
that
Yeah, you
when
know.
you did that change, you did it because of the stuff at the time. But now you're in a different mode and you're doing it for different reasons. So what I was going to say is, why don't you just start recording it whenever and then put it out as a premiere at a specific time? You get your live audience that isn't giving up
Because
on you
that
because they can't
doubles
find it anymore.
the time investment I have to make in that piece of content, because then I feel compelled to be there during the live stream. The guest may not be, so the audience is going to be able to, yes, show up and communicate amongst themselves. That's wonderful. But there are other chat rooms and live streams they can join to do that at the end of the day. That's not engagement with myself or the guest. That's just people hanging out just to freaking lawyer around a channel. And again, I'm not being mean, but that's the reality of the situation. With a premiere, if my guest is not able to make that after agreeing to the time to record and blah blah blah, now they got to agree to another time to try to come on so they can answer questions potentially in a live chat in text, which is limited to what you can, the characters you can use and everything else. It's just not. What's the point of that? Like, I don't see. It's more work, and at the end of the day, it doesn't accomplish the engagement aspect of actually being live.
All right. So let's see. I guess Plainut's giving us one more question here, and then we'll wrap it up. Blah blah blah. What is exactly is TriggerCon? What is the difference between that and SHOT Show? Go ahead. He's asking you, I think. He's muted. He doesn't know the difference.
I am muted. I'm sitting here talking and I'm muted. Amateur hour over here. TriggerCon is vastly, crazily smaller than SHOT Show. TriggerCon also is open to the public. So TriggerCon is more a slightly smaller version of the USCCA Concealed Carry Home Defense Expo. Would be it would be the closest parallel I could draw. However, it's different than that because there's a lot more tactical and long gun related things, whereas Concealed Carry Home Defense Expo, there's very few, if any, shotguns in there, save for maybe like a Mossberg Shockwave, right? Um, and it more revolves around safes and storage and handguns and, you know, defensive type firearms and gear, right? So it's a little more open as far as that. Um, Similarities is there's a range day attached to TriggerCon, which is cool. But again, you're talking about a range day where the public is there, which is definitely a difference. It could get super interesting. There is quote unquote public in a way, I guess, at the SHOT Show range day because you have the dealers and stuff that are able to come in later in the day there. So it's certainly not just gun, gun tubers and stuff all day with that. Uh, but a little bit different with gun shop owners and stuff like that. That's a little bit demographic than just the rank and file general public. There's also age restrictions on SHOT Show. As far as getting in there, SugarCon doesn't have any. We've seen younger kiddos, on the show floor. We've seen younger kiddos even at the range day, which was kind of cool. It's in Kansas, whereas SHOT Show's in Vegas, and there's a huge difference between Wichita, Kansas. That should go without saying. And Vegas, as far as the nightlife, as far as amenities and things around and what you can do, and the transportation options, there and home, and um, so. But all in all, I can't knock on TriggerCon. The return on TriggerCon uh, was absolutely amazing. I mean, I think TriggerCon probably should be on creators' list, and I say that with a little bit of hesitation because um, the more unless the exhibitor list grows significantly, then the getting a lot more media there is going to potentially hurt the ROI of the media that's already there. If you get what I'm saying, and that's one of the reasons I gauge what shows to go to and which ones not to go to. Um, what's that ratio like? And I definitely want it way more exhibitors than what media is there. Um, that way there's not nearly as much competition for time and having those conversations and all that stuff you need to do.
The attendance of TriggerCon, do you know?
Oh,
Like
I
people
have
want the number.
no idea. It's tough to say. It's tough to say. I mean, there was over 100 exhibitors, and then so by the time you figure out all the people, by the time you figure out the staffing there,
So four per booth is 400, and then what's
there's
a
more than
hockey
four.
stadium?
There's more than four. Some of those companies had more than, I mean, way more than four, and some had the smallest was like two, and then some had like 6 or 8 there. So I mean, I
Okay,
think
so
there
if
was
you
more
say
than
8, then
I think there's probably more than four average, and then the venue. So you're probably talking 1,000 people easily every day without the general public or dealers or anything like that. So, um, potentially a couple of 3,000 on the Saturday. Range day is tough to say, but probably there was obviously less people at the range day. But I'm trying to think how many the buses hold and how many buses ran, and I don't know. Probably all day for the range day. I mean, there easily could have been over 1,000 on the range day. So again, it's significantly smaller in scope than SHOT Show, but it's a totally different event as well. So
SHOT Show is more like 60,000, and what do they say now? The 8th largest trade show in the country. And then Eric said, wish SHOT Show had at least one day open to the public. It wouldn't. It's not feasible. It's not logistically possible. They could do another event, but the it's a working show, so they would either have to extend it by a day or sacrifice a day, and they wouldn't because it's not possible. There's no way to shift the people, so you'd have to turn it off. Let's say you turned it off from gun shops, which is what it's predominantly for. So all the people that were normally there are going to stay there another day, but all the gun shops have to leave. So how fast can maids change rooms in Vegas, or whoever you want to call the staff, recycle hotels? They can't. Like, it's not possible for Vegas to have all these people show up for one day. And think about the cost to show up in Vegas for one day a SHOT Show. So it's already a very large show happening between and amongst other large shows. Vegas is essentially packed. To add, it just logistically wouldn't happen. You'd have to do it at a different event, and since SHOT Show doesn't, guess what? TriggerCon, start naming them. There's other events. Try to think of the one that just happened in Pennsylvania. Rod of Freedom, something like that. That was called Thunder Festival. But so you can get to
Rod of
those.
Iron.
Rod of Iron. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking something like that. And then I missed that one completely. Like, they didn't advertise good or something. I missed it on my calendars and stuff. But then you've got the NRA show, which is the closest in its, like Clover was saying, if it was a buffet, NRA SHOT Show is everything and stuff you don't want. NRA is everything and stuff you don't want. If it's USCCA, it's like a pizza buffet. It's a buffet, but it's full of pizza. It's a buffet, but it's just CCW stuff. Like, if it's touching CCW, it's there. If it doesn't, it ain't. And some of these other events are not so much worried about the topic. It's just that, hey, if we've only got 8 vendors, guess what we're covering? 8 things. If we got 80 vendors, guess what we're covering? 80 things. SHOT Show is more like 10,000 things. So the topic of the shows are a lot different. So going to your public shows, you get to pick what it is you want to do. That being said, You don't have to build things as the public. There's every single gun shop that's out there needs help. Every single manufacturer that's out there needs help. Every single distributor that's out there needs help. You know it because they pay employees. So you can get paid to go to these shows if you want to be part of the industry, part of the community. Your ranges, your gun shops, your clubs all have the ability to send representatives there. Or you just pick up your phone or your camera, start creating content, become part of the people who share what these things are.
Bingo.
Right?
And we talk about that every Tuesday, as a matter of fact, I think.
Yep. Exactly. I heard that the Gundies are held during SHOT Show. Did you already mention? Well, I don't ever mention that because they're weird. But yeah, they definitely are trying to offer something different. So they happen at the same time, I imagine. I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, I guess. But I don't know. You changing your mind on the Gundies at all?
Me? Nah. I mean, I know the guys. I spent a lot of time in TriggerCon, actually with the Will and I can't remember the other guy's name, but I've known Will, who started the Gundies for quite a few years back. The first year they had the Gundies, I had him on the podcast. So I've got my opinions on the Gundies, and it's no secret. Will and I have talked about the things. The Gundies is always going to be one of those. It's a popularity contest. It's kind of like, but everything is as far as awards.
It's a marketing.
Everything is as far as well. I'm not even looking at that angle. I'm looking at it from a creator perspective. But it's always going to be. It's sort of like the any kind of awards or anything. Like it's going to be a popularity contest. It's going to be who certain people like, and who's kisses the most butt. And I mean, there's a lot of weird things like that revolve around any awards, and the Gundies is going to be no different. So I'm not picking on the Gundies with that. I'm just saying anytime you have a situation like that, and I'm just not into that. Like I'm not. I don't think viewers, followers, whatever should be putting online content creators on any type of a pedestal, because as G pointed out earlier, you can literally turn on a camera, turn on a microphone, listen in on Thursdays, and get the information you need to do exactly what everybody you see on these platforms is doing. Like nobody is special in that regard.
Yeah, it doesn't count as an award when the only people included are from a company. Like it's like saying, hey, we're going to have our own thing here. We're going to, so it's like Disney.
Well, and anybody can nominate anybody, including.
Well, no, it's like Disney saying, let's have the most popular character contest, and you come along with, I don't know, something that Disney don't own. They're going to be like, okay, thank you very much, but let's see which Disney character is going to win. So it's a marketing thing. It's not. If it was held by an organization that wasn't a marketing company, then it wouldn't be a scripted marketing campaign. But if it's a marketing campaign, it's a marketing campaign. So that's my issue with it. It's not I guess you could say it's a popularity contest because it's a poll, but it's a poll done as a marketing campaign. It's not let's create awareness and let's give people an opportunity to present their stuff. It's let's have a marketing campaign and let's do a bunch of viral marketing funnels and see who's effective at them. Like that's neat. Yeah. Or at least teach people what viral marketing funnels are and how they're using their strategies on Instagram and stuff so that people do it themselves.
Yeah, I'm not upset it exists,
No,
and I've had that conversation with Will, and I've got my opinions of, even though it's not my bag, like, I've got some opinions on this could be better, that could be better, and we did talk about a few of those things actually at TriggerCon, but we talked about that even the very first Gundies was kicked off, and I had him on the podcast, and it took 2 years or something to even get any semblance of a Second Amendment category. And so, but they finally did accomplish that for what it's worth again. But at least that category, they've got something in there along those lines now, which is, at the end of the day, I guess is a good thing.
I don't know. That's like saying, okay, well now Wide World of Wrestling has a character that makes fun of Second Amendment. So I guess we've accomplished something. I mean, it's not quite that bad, but I don't see a pander as but I hear what you're saying.
Well, they're leaning more to, and that's part of the conversation Will and I had at TriggerCon, is to a category that I had in mind years ago when he was on the podcast was more of an organizational, boots on the ground, somebody actually making and affecting change. Somebody a lot like Tony Simon, who is apparently busy today and couldn't join us. Great example of somebody who would be deserving of being nominated and winning the Gundy for 2A. Unfortunately, just because of the makeup of the Gundys, and it's all about the big creators and blah blah blah, you get the talking point regurgitators that end up flooding in, and of course they're massive amounts of followers and viewers and everything else. Obviously one of them is gonna win that poll. So much different situation. I don't know how they navigate that going forward, or if they do, but I can say that we did have a conversation about it, which was awesome.
Yeah, it's better than I'm just walking away. I've definitely had people just walk away when I bring up shit like that. Hey, you know what you're missing? And they just walk away. They don't care. So it's better to, Anyway, so actually we talked about that on this show like a year ago, right? We were going to do a 2A thing, and then, none of us are like independently wealthy sitting around with staff to task with the follow up on that. But we were thinking about doing something, then we figured out it was going to run right into that dumb thing, and we didn't want to look like we were just trying to crap on it or whatever, so we never did do it. But there's opportunities at gun rights policy. Instead of just giving an award to somebody they vote on, they could do a massive poll. They could use that as a outreach, as a way to get people hyped about the event as it was coming up. People could again do presentations to show who they are, and have different, maybe not debates, but get-togethers to let people see who was all on the nominating thing, and that would give people an incentive to do more, so that next year they could be nominated. Now, second thing we could talk about all day about what national level organizations could be doing with their resources, but we're going to end this one. We're supposed to end half an hour ago, but thanks everybody for joining us. We ranted a little bit this time. We did get a couple of questions answered, but I think people watch this show because hopefully you're interested in the opinions of three people that have been gun owners our whole lives, and have been through some of the ups and downs and backs and forths and the lower end of it. Back in the old days, it was fun because there was a lot of deep roots, and our grandparents really had respect for firearms, and they appreciated. I really believe they really, really got a lot out of teaching us as grandkids about their guns, and the appreciation and the respect for them and all the different levels. They understood our admiration for what they'd gone through to make sure that these rights exist. And, we have that. And I think we're trying to offer that perspective, that experience to people who again are coming into this as, I don't even know what it's like. I can't think of what I did when I was 35. I guess the internet, like, oh wow, I like this internet thing, something that people choose as adults to get part of, or to be a part of. You get to be our grandparents. You get to be the first one experiencing and having and doing and figuring stuff out. And then you get to take that to your grandkids and your kids, and whatever, whoever you're bringing that to. So anyway,
I experienced that last week, actually. I have a fingerprint front lock on my door that does not require keys anymore. I literally set my thumb on it and open the door, and it's like, oh my God, where was this my entire life? Of fumbling keys and dropping keys through the cracks in the porch, and this is amazing. So, yeah, I mean, I get what it would be like coming to something new, I guess is what I'm saying, or finally adopting new technology or new things, or and I think we all go through that eventually with one thing or another.
Well, you just told almost a dozen people all they got to do is chop off your thumb and they get into your house for free. So
this is true. Good luck chopping off my thumb. So I don't think you're going to get that close to me, but
well played. All right, well, watch for Clover taking a nap and you can get into his house for free. That's
true. You catch me napping at SHOT Show. There you go.
What happened to my thumbs? I can run home real quick. All right, so with that, we're wrapping it up.
Which thumb, though, G? I didn't say which thumb, though.
That means they're going to take both. You just made it worse for yourself.
I hate to tell you, but you chop one thumb, you're going to wake me up.
Anyway, so with that, with that pleasant thought, we're gonna end this one.
Right.
We'll end it with Tony does the advocacy work for real. Or what is it? 2A4E, the diversity shoot. Usually the second and third Thursdays of the month. Stay tuned to his channels for the ranges that it alternates between. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week. Leave your questions over there.